Hi, is that Luke?
It is, yeah.
Hi, mate, it's Nick. How are you doing?
I'm good, Nick. You alright?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Thanks for agreeing to do this. It should just be sort of 5 or 10 minutes of your time, if that's all right.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. So I just wanted to talk to you about your upcoming fight with Maxim Futin. What do you know about this guy? I mean, this is you're moving up a weight, right? So this is your first fight.
Yeah.
So
it's not my first fight. So basically, I've gone from middleweight to light heavyweight. I've been fighting at middleweight for about 9 years, on and off. 9 years, 8-9 years. But I've had 2 fights previously at light heavyweight. But
okay.
This is like my first. I'm not going to fight middleweight ever again. So this will be my first fight that starts as a run at light heavyweight.
Right. Okay.
Basically, but Maxim, I know pretty well because I work with ACB, the promotion. I've commentated for them before, and I've actually commentated on one of Maxim's fights. He fought an opponent of mine, a guy named Max Nunes, a Swedish guy. They fought to each other. Max beat him, and I fought Max, and I beat Max.
Yeah.
My last light heavyweight fight. Yeah, I know quite a lot, but I don't know much about him. I don't know if he speaks English or not, but I never met him. I had a conversation with him or anything like that. But I've watched all of his fights. I know his fighting style. I know what he's about.
Yeah, and when you're sort of on the circuit, do you get to hang out with these guys? I mean, presumably you train in similar gyms and with the same guys, and you know. So do you get to see, your opponents before, or how does it sort of work usually?
Yeah, yes and no, depending. I mean, like with this one with Maxim, he's I don't know whereabouts he's from, but somewhere in Russia, I'm guessing. So it's like a different part of the world that I would never go and train at. For instance, Max Nunes, the guy that we both fought, I've been on the scene with him for years and years and years, and I know him very well. We're friends now. And I've trained with him in gyms many times before. But Maxim coming from Russia is like a different world, so it's not so much that I train with him or know him, but I've seen him about at shows and promotions and stuff with ACB. But I don't think he speaks English, so I don't really know him too well.
Yeah. Okay. And how long does it take you to? How long's your training camp for one of these fights? Are you sort of a 6-week, 8-week camp, or is it sort of
It's dependent. It depends. I mean, with this one, obviously, I've been training since Christmas because I have to take a little bit of time off over Christmas, and I started training as soon as I got back. January 2nd, I got back to training. So whatever that is in weeks, I don't really know. But I do anything from a 6-week to a 12-week training camp generally. So it's normally about a 2-month build-up. I'd say 2 months of concentrated training on one opponent, but you're training all year round. Like when I finish this fight, I'll be back in the gym a week, 2 weeks later training, but with no specific goal in mind. And then when they bring an opponent towards you, you then have about 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, depending on it, to get ready for a specific fight.
Right. Okay. And this is like what you do. So do you have when you're not fighting? Do you have another income, or do you have a job, or is this your sole profession?
This is my sole profession. Professionally, I've been doing it for the last 5 years. It's dependent on what position you are in the sport. So if you're starting out in the sport, obviously it doesn't, it's not something you can live off of.
Yeah.
I went to something called the UFC, which is the Premier League, basically, of fighting. So I was in the UFC for about 3 years. And once you're there, you can just about start, you can start living off of the sport. If you get higher in the UFC, you can really, make a great living out of it.
Yeah.
Coming out there, I've managed to, sort my life to a stage where I can rely on the sport financially. But I also have a few side projects going on as well, just to embellish that. So I run my own gym here. I live in Malaga, Spain.
Oh right. Okay.
And I have my own facility here, which I also train people at, which has obviously a financial reward to it. But I just do that as part of my lifestyle, and I pretty much live off the fighting, live off the profession.
Right. Okay. So is the goal for you to get back to the UFC, or what's your what you're aiming for now?
Not really. I think with me right now, I've been there and done the UFC thing. Obviously, if the opportunity arose, there's always a chance of me going. But I actually could have gone back there before I signed my contract with ACB. But I had a fight, and in it, my first fight with ACB, I actually lost, and that put me back a little bit.
Right.
But for me now, where I'm at now, my career and my lifestyle, I'm very happy with ACB. I've been with them for a year and a half. It's a great promotion. They treat me very well, and I can see myself trying to advance my position in their promotion rather than thinking about going back to the UFC. So now with the change of weight class, it's going to take a little bit of time, but I can see myself being in the title picture and fighting for the light heavyweight title in the future. But with the change of weight, it will take me maybe a year, 2 years to be in that sort of position.
Yeah. Okay. And what about fighting in Dubai? I assume that's a first for you. Have you been here before? Or, have you been to the place? And what?
I've been over to Dubai twice. Dubai once and Abu Dhabi, which is not far away, but Abu Dhabi once as well. I actually came out there as for a UFC event. I didn't fight on it, but I was there for the UFC about 3 years ago, maybe. I had a great time, so I know the place pretty well. So it's a nice touch to be fighting in such a nice place. Obviously, like I said, I live in Malaga, Spain, so the weather. It's not like it's the same sort of weather here.
Yeah.
Pretty much 8 months of the year. So, but for a lot of people, that's super cool, and it's good for me too. I'm used to that environment. I'm used to the heat. So it's nice. It's great to be able to fight there and go back to Dubai, and that's one of the best things about fighting for me anyway. Because the level I'm at, I've managed to travel the world with the sport, and I'm all over the place all the time. I just got back from I did a bit of training for my camp in Sweden, in Stockholm, which was -5 degrees, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Being in Dubai, but yeah, no, it's great to be able to go back out there and have a new experience and actually fight over there. So it'd be good.
Yeah. And what got you into the game in the first place? So there were a lot easier ways to make a living. What made you choose fighting?
Well, it's a bit of a stupid reason, to be honest, but back in the day when I first, I'm 29 now.
Yeah.
I'm 30 in April, but I started when I was 21. And when I was 21, I used to do door work, so I was a security officer in Essex, where I'm from.
Yeah.
And the guy I used to work with used to fight. And when I turned up to work, he'd always talk to me about the training he was doing. He was on some sort of diet and whatever he was doing. And I always used to just think he was a bit of a pussy and say, come on, I reckon I could beat you up, pretty much is what he used to say. And he said, well, if you think that, why don't you come training one night and we'll have a scrap? And I went training and he beat the crap out of me. And I felt a bit embarrassed about it. So when, I felt really embarrassed, and I thought, I need to learn how to do this just to be able to defend myself in the real world, because I already had a bit of a misconception of where I was at physically and all the rest of it. So after that happened, I started training with this guy. His name is Jack Mason. I started training with him about 4 times a week. We used to travel up to a gym called the Tsunami Gym, and that was it. As soon as I started training, I fell in love with doing it, training and making myself better, and I just got better and better and better, and it was never supposed to be a profession. It was just supposed to be a hobby, and the more time I started putting into it, I saw that I had a future in it, and I started dedicating more and more time and more things, and ended up dedicating my whole life to it.
Yeah. And how did you get the place on the Ultimate Fighter? Presumably that's quite a coveted or sought after spot.
Yeah, it's huge. At the time I was 5-0 on the local scene here in England. Not here, but in England. And, I was competing, and they put out basically what they do is they put out like a form saying if you want to come to the Ultimate Fighter, you have to come to the tryouts. At the time, I was living in the gym that I was training at, so I got to the stage where I'd given up my job because I used to work in marketing. I used to work as a promotions guy, and I decided to give that up and move to Cambridge and move into my gym where I was training. So I ended up living there full time. And from when the advert came out, I basically was living in the gym and didn't have a penny, but it was a huge opportunity. Like you said, it's a very, very big deal to be on the Ultimate Fighter. So I actually borrowed money off one of my good friends and my gran, and I flew to Vegas for the tryouts. So you have to go physically to tryouts.
Right.
And be seen by judges, and you do some grappling, hit some pads, and they interview you, and then you go through a selection process. And I went through the selection process, and I got in. I mean, I was extremely lucky to do that at 5-0, especially. I was 24 at the time, so I'd only been doing MMA for about 3 years, and I was already on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
And then from there, I had a great showing on the show. We had one of the best seasons ever in the Ultimate Fighter 17. And from that point, I got called into the UFC, and I had a contract with the UFC for 2 or 3 years. And it sort of just all happened overnight, really.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And I need to ask you about Floyd Mayweather. He's been sort of teasing fans lately. I don't know if you've seen it, sort of in the octagon and all that sort of stuff. Do you think he'd fare well as a mixed martial arts or not?
Floyd is amazing at what he does. He's amazing at what he does, and he's amazing at creating hype and promotion and doing what he does. But we've already had it. It's happened previously. The storyline has already happened with a guy named James Toney, who used to be heavyweight champion of the world, came into the UFC and fought Randy Couture. Yeah. And you can watch that fight back and see how it went. It didn't go down very well. And boxing, as amazing as boxing is, and in a singular discipline, it's an extremely testing and hard sport to do, and Floyd is a master of that. MMA is a completely different game, and he knows that. And I think he's just having a bit of fun and trying to get people riled up, but he doesn't stand a chance. I mean, especially at his age and everything else. People aren't going to stand in front of him and let him punch him. So it's just a tease. He wouldn't stay. If he went into a cage and fought, it doesn't even have to be a Conor McGregor. Obviously that's who it's targeted against. If he fought a subpar, average MMA fighter, he'd get beat. He doesn't have what it takes. The sport of MMA is so multifaceted and so many skills involved. You have to be able to do so many different things, not just stand and punch people. But the grappling especially, it takes years and years and years of hard work and mat time to get to any sort of level. I think a good amateur could beat Floyd Mayweather.
Okay, that's interesting. And what did you think of Conor McGregor's boxing performance? Do you think if he wanted to, do you think he could make a career of that? Because he didn't do too badly.
I think he fared pretty well. I mean, making a career of it is a different game, and boxing is a very different game. And I think that's what Conor always wanted to do. Conor always wanted to be a boxer. And he didn't become a boxer because it's a very tough thing to do. It's a very different system. And his style, although he has very good boxing in his MMA style, he's much more well suited to MMA, and I think he does much better when he fights MMA than he does what he would ever do in boxing. Boxing is too stringent, it's too one facet, and I think he would struggle against good box. I mean, obviously he fought one of the best boxers ever. He looked okay in a couple of the rounds, but I don't think he would ever make a career out of that. He might have a couple of more super fights against big guys because now he's such a huge name. But if he was had to do it like everyone else had to do it and come up the ranks, and go to the Olympics and try and win a gold medal, which I think is what he ever wanted to do since he was a kid. The reason he didn't do it is because he wasn't good enough in that field, And he's found his home. He's found his niche, and it's in MMA. He's incredible at what he does in the sport. He uses boxing very well in mixed martial arts. It's like one of his main things that he does. But again, same as like Floyd trying to do MMA. You can't switch between the two. They're completely different sports, and everything about them is completely different. As a guy just watching TV, when you watch boxing and you watch MMA, they look similar because you're hitting each other. But there's so many different things to it, and I think for him to go into boxing now, he's undoing all of the hard work he's put in for the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years in MMA. If he'd have just concentrated on boxing for that time, maybe he could have done something. But to now switch from where he's at to boxing, I don't think it's going to happen, to be honest.
Okay. Well, perfect. I mean, that's all my questions. So thanks again for taking the time. And I might even see you at the event. I think I'll be down there. So good luck in your fight, and I'll maybe see you there.
Yeah, nice. I don't think there's too many English-speaking guys. I don't know who's on the card. I haven't checked out the whole card, but Cool. Yeah. Hopefully
Cool.
I'll see you there and have a beer afterwards or something.
Yeah, sounds good, mate. Thanks very much, and I'll speak to you soon.
Nice one. Cheers.
All right, mate.
Nice one, mate.